As the world's battle with the coronavirus rages on, one has to wonder what will happen when the smoke clears. Tens of millions of people are already dependent on the UN's World Food Program for meals. If that were to lose funding, all of those people would be threatened with starvation.
If we lost our funding, a minimum of 30 million would die. Over a 3-month period, that would be 300,000 people dying per day. That's why leaders have got to balance out the COVID response with keeping the economy going, because otherwise a lot more people will die from starvation and economic deterioration than from COVID itself.
Even before the pandemic, the world had a serious food crisis on its hands. The World Economic Forum says that over 820 million people were going to bed hungry. Now many organizations are indicating that the situation can get much, much worse.
We fully agree with governments that first has to be health, and the measures that are taken in place have to be supported. But we also believe that second will come food. The food value chain needs to be kept alive to be able to have food available for consumers and to minimize the potential risk of undernourishment and, of course, poverty.
It's a crisis of the international markets. Under the lockdown, the very supply chains of transnational corporations are breaking apart. Food can't be processed, delivered, or received between countries, within countries, everywhere. For the developing world, that means famine could be just around the corner, especially now that humanitarian relief is also being obstructed by the lockdowns. Widespread poverty, a reliance on imported food, and rising prices are all a recipe for disaster, according to the United Nations. For the millions living in lockdown countries that fit that criteria, food is running out. Across Africa, clashes between hungry people and the police are already taking place. Many governments of the developing world are struggling with a terrible dilemma. See their people die from the coronavirus, or see them die from starvation.
While in the developed world, the main dilemma is containing the coronavirus through lockdowns and then dealing with the economic impact, in the developing world, apart from containing the virus and dealing with the economic crisis, the biggest worry now is people dying of hunger.
That doesn't mean the journey from farm to plate isn't obstructed in the developed world. In the United States, dairy farms are dumping thousands of gallons of milk a day because they can't be sold. At the same time, retailers are fearing a shortage of milk, and they're limiting the amount that consumers can buy. As for fruits and vegetables, $5 billion worth have been wasted for the same reason. One of America's largest pork processing plants has even been closed because of the virus.
The closure of this facility, combined with a growing list of other protein plants that have shuttered across our industry, is pushing our country perilously close to the edge in terms of our meat supply. It is impossible to keep our grocery stores stocked if our plants are not running.
The chaos of the free market is rearing its ugly head in more ways than just one. Week by week, millions more are flocking to unemployment lines and food banks. The early indicators of a global food crisis are there before our very eyes. We should ask ourselves, how much farther can the global food supply chain bend before it breaks?
A senior economist at the UN's Food and Agriculture Organization told us the crisis needs a concerted international response.
When people stay home and workers stay home, that obviously creates disruptions to value chain for food. You know, food gets harvested, then it has to be processed, then it has to be put on the shelves. Obviously, there may be disruptions in this line because of the lockdowns and because of the fact that people, let's say seasonal workers, cannot probably move around from one place to another. So that is one set of problem. And the other set of problem is that a lot of people, especially poorer people, if they don't go to work, they don't have the earning, if they don't have the money, they cannot buy the food. We are talking about also countries where malnutrition already is huge. Governments would need to have enough finances, enough safety nets to be able to reach these people and to make sure that they have the minimum food that is really needed. The problem is these countries cannot afford it. So they need help, they need support, and the help has to come from the richer countries. If the richer countries today are very much engaged, of course, for their own people, the message from FAO is do not forget the poorer ones, because if the problem is not resolved globally, it will come back and haunt everybody again.